to summarize first what we did in this course. We did a little probe into the history, the modern and ancient history of Chinese medicine. Tried to give kind of an overview that there are many things happen throughout history and we should have our own point of view, what we need to cultivate and how we should cultivate it. We were talking about circles, the outer water circle, the fire inner circle, or the circle at the bottom of the circle, which means the unification part, right? It's all circular motions for us with the different details related to each one. If it's the parts of the circle, if it's the dichotomy inside the heart circle, and so forth. I call it circles just to put it back together. I put this picture back together, that it's all one whole thing, right? The left impacts the right, the inside impacts the outside, everything is together. That's the idea of circle. And then we were talking about methods, if it's the acupuncture, the herbs, the formulas, the Shinfa method, to a certain degree we tried to cover them as best as possible. We were practicing cultivation every time. Before we start the class we did Wu Qigong. Hopefully we start getting more and more sense through practice, not just through talking about it. And I think overall we developed in this course a unique concept of health, which I a few times touched on it in this class already. You know, how we think about health, how we can progress in health, and what does it mean in different level. If it's on a physical level, on the pains and aches in the body, to increasing unification so we have a long-term recovery, to restoring the heart harmony, or finding this life or longevity in the center that can really help us live long life. All these things I think sum up to a unique concept of health. I mentioned before, and I just want to bring this example of a blood pressure patient which I talked about a few weeks ago. And if you might remember, we talked about this patient that has high blood pressure and he also has pains in the legs that were hiding and then they showed up. But remember, he was taking the herbs and they were making him dizzy. And I said there are a few options. Either you drink coffee and because of the coffee there's too much separation, or you drink it on empty stomach and that's why all of a sudden the movement is not slow enough, so you start seeing speeding up. Or he was exercising the night before. Remember, we talked about it maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. But yesterday I saw this patient last night, and he says, you know, I mean, his blood pressure was 160 over 110, and now it's like 170 over 120. So seemingly it's getting worse a little bit, at least from blood pressure point of view. And his pains in the legs are also coming back. Remember, and we talked about it. The unification starts getting stronger and then you start seeing the problem on the circle. So the first thing they found out, that's what we talked about yesterday, you know, he used to get dizzy after drinking the herbs for an hour or two, but he was, you know, just eating a little bit. So they found out, like I said, that's what they said, just like you said, that if he eats more before, he actually does not feel dizzy anymore. So that kind of solved it. Having an empty stomach, drinking the cinnamon and this was the problem, and it solved this dizziness issue. But nonetheless, I want to point out to this blood pressure increasing, 170 to 120 from 160 and 110. I mean, it's high, it's both about the same high, but it's getting a little higher, and of course the patient is getting a little worried. So one thing that, you know, we could think if we do the wrong move, remember this wrong move? We get used to this. I say, look, increase, so what should I do? Maybe I put some herbs for Yang Ming. Maybe because the Yang Ming starts slowing down. Remember, high blood pressure, the Yang Ming slowing down. It's an instinct, right? We know that we should do this with the elbow in, but we bring the hands in first. It's an instinct that we can't get rid of it. And that was also my initial thought. Well, it's increasing. What should I do? After so many years, I'm still failing, but I didn't make this wrong move, but I had this instinct. Wait, is it the Yang Ming? Should I bring down the Yang Ming? But then I was kind of, you know, breathing to my dantian and holding my breath, relax, and, you know, first don't worry and try to find out what's the proper measure to do it. And then I realized that, this Jueyin slowing and the leg pain that he used to have and kind of disappeared and now they're coming back, they all show that the unification is getting stronger, which making sense with, the unification does make sense with all the hot herbs, the cinnamon that he's drinking and the ginger, that it will get stronger and the pain will come out, and this is what's happening. And now I'm thinking, this blood pressure that he has for a few years and progressively getting worse before the herbs, and he's getting weaker and weaker. We need to get the unification stronger, but so I'm asking him, do you feel thirsty? For sure, again, do you feel thirsty? Do you feel hot? He says, no, I don't feel hot, I don't feel thirsty. In the past, are you sure you didn't feel hot? You didn't feel thirsty? He said, no, I never felt hot, and I was never the kind that liked to drink water. Like I'm rehashing it, the Yang Ming, again and again, and it's not there. And then I know it's the wrong thing to try to do herbs on Yang Ming because he says the blood pressure is increasing. And I go back to this Hunyuan heart, I go back there, and I know he needs to get stronger. And I know that the slowdown on the Jueyin is coming out because he's getting stronger. That's why his leg is hurting. So the formula is the unification herbs are still strong, and I'm increasing the separation herb, right? Because the Jueyin is slowing down, and this is the only thing that could make now the blood pressure aggravate. Either is weak or the Jueyin is coming out, and maybe that makes the blood pressure high. But regardless, I all of a sudden stop thinking about the blood pressure, and I'm just thinking how to make him stronger, healthier. He needs to get his unification strong. And now at this particular time, I need to increase the speed on the Jueyin. So I'm increasing the Dangui and I add in more Xiao Huxian dosage to increase the speed on Jueyin, to resolve the pains in the legs. And I can tell you without doubt, if we'll talk again next year, and you ask me about this patient, if he consistently took the herbs for another 6 months or longer, his blood pressure will come down. In other words, I did not get scared. I did not run away. I did not freak out. Initially I did, but it was just the first 2 seconds. And it took me about 2 seconds to get back to myself. Blood pressure is high, the Yang Ming, something, or maybe the Jueyin is running faster, but it's not. It's actually going slower. The pains are coming in the leg. It's a slow action on the Jueyin. So to the contrary, so that's why at the very beginning of the class I told you, don't get away from pulling the hands that way, like merging it with Western medicine. High blood pressure, the Jueyin is fast, or the Yang Ming is slow, or it's in his head, or something like that. Right? But again, these things, you have to train it for a long time. This habit, they don't go away, not after years. But again, from at the beginning, completely making me do a mistake, then they dissolve after 2 seconds and you don't do the mistake. So this is how the Gongfu is improving. But there's no doubt that his blood pressure is going to get better. And I'm not talking from overconfidence. I just know that when you're in the center, the right thing is coming out, and that happens over and over and over again. So after some time, you know that it happens like this. You know it was a mistake to do this Yang Ming herbs. We had other fellows here that had that mistake. You can see it in the forum. All of a sudden blood pressure came up, so do some Yang Ming herbs and start getting swelling in the legs and other problems. But I'm just sharing with you here point number 5, a unique concept of health. I'm just bringing this example. It's you go back to this Hunyuan, it becomes part of you. It's not just something external. It becomes part of you. And then you think like that, you act like that. That's how we start seeing results. To graduate in 2017, we have assignments and tests.